Hi everybody, my name is Ambika and herein you are with me on Unacademy's channel which is Let's Crack CBSE with us. And with us, I meant Unacademy. So guys, before beginning or before rather ending our session, because herein today we're going to be the last session on the topic Mother's Day. So before discussing anything in detail about a topic, I wanted to give you a quick understanding of how Unacademy functions and why you should enroll yourself with Unacademy. The first and the foremost thing is herein you will going to have daily live classes on our app, okay, wherein you can chat with your educators, you can engage yourself in those discussions which take place while the session is going on, right? You can ask your doubts, and along with that, KBC is on these days, right? So how we have in KBC the four options, in the same fashion we have here as well the polls. So you have to choose amongst the four option one, right? So everything is like a user friendly. This app is user friendly, and the best part of this app is daily life classes, which makes it so different from our other, competitors apps. Wherein maybe I would rather recommend all of you to go with an academy. Next thing is with live tests and quizzes. So herein you are going to have live tests and quizzes, right? And wherein you can evaluate your performance. You can evaluate on which particular topic you need to focus more, what all needs your more attention, right? And that can be discussed by having your mock tests and quizzes, right? So you can analyze your own performance as well. Next is structured course. So the course is structured really, really, really well, wherein every topic, every chapter gets equal weightage in our eyes, right? And herein you can study accordingly the specific course. Now, with one subscription, it is just not that you can study one subject. Rather, you can check out all the other subjects as well, right? Now, as I have already told you, hi Deepak, hi. As I have already told you, you can check out our, live tests, live quizzes, and herein, definitely that is live because our educators go live as well. Hi Atyush. Right? Next is you can prepare your content with the nation's best top educators. Right? They are like, demigods who are like super, 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 super prolific with their own subject streams. Right? So you can, no, Atyush, no, not yet, not now. So therein you can actually prepare your content with the best educators. Yes, I am there on Unacademy, Atyush. Now, how you can download this particular app? It's very, very, very easy. All you need to do is go to your Play Store. Therein you need to type Unacademy Learning App. I repeat, you need to type Unacademy Learning App, and this is how it will going to look like. Download this app from there, right? Install it. Now the question arises how you will come to know that when what all classes are being lined up. So for that, we have our own Telegram link, that is Quest 11 CBSE Science. I repeat, that is Quest 11 CBSE Science. Although it is saying science, but then herein you have got all the other streams as well, which is your which is definitely your humanities, your science, and as well as your commerce. So everything is lined up here, and you can actually check out its own specifications when which class is being lined up using this particular link. Next is subscription. Guys, I would rather recommend go for 6 and 12-month subscription, right? Because, this is not like that the exams will get over in next 3 to 4 months and then this will not be continued. No, that is not the way how an academy functions. So that will going to carry further. When you move to the next grade, the next session, you can continue using it, right? And the crazy part about using my code is that, with this code, which is AMBIKA, you can get a 10% discount. So I would suggest that guys do go for this. Now, as you already know, we have discussed with the Mother's Day, and today I have told you will be the last lecture on this particular topic, right? So herein, what is going to happen now? We will going to complete the whole chapter. Along with that, we will also check out the other questions, right? We will check out everything which is part of this particular chapter, right? Now, since 2 days itself, you know that this chapter is being written by J.B. Priestley, and he was a British playwright. Right? He was actually part of World War One as well. We have checked out the gist of the story. Gist of the story is like overall what the story is trying to say to us. Now, the play was written by J.B. Priestley, right, reveals how a mother's efforts are ignored by her family. So how people generally ignore the efforts, the hard work which mother does for the family. People consider that as simply her duty, as simply like it's her responsibility. So why to even recognize that, why to even register that, right? So that is how, wherein our playwright JB Priestley is telling, no, you are going wrong there, and you need to pay attention to your mother, that whatever work she's doing, whatever hard work she's putting into her work, you need to acclaim that, you need to register that. Hi Nidhi, good afternoon. Good afternoon. So herein you need to register it, you need to acknowledge that, right? Now, a mother's efforts are ignored by her family. It narrates how the family members who work 8 hours shift a day look upon her, although she works for the whole day and all week. So herein people generally, they forget that we go out, we work hard, we work eight hours a day continuously. So rather we should get more attention, and you just stay home, you just do things which are not so important. So that is why they don't pay attention to it at all. Right now, the story goes ahead wherein she met our character. She met with Mrs. Fitzgerald, and therein, every problem which she had just altered. Right? Structure of the play, we have discussed in detail that this structure is very easy. The play is not at all divided into different acts or scenes. Rather, the whole scene, the whole we will begin from page number 41 today, Nidhi. Yeah. So the structure, right? Hmm. The structure itself is very easy. There are no different acts or scenes. There is no like act one, scene one, so on. Nothing is like very complex for us, right? It's very easy, and there are only five plays in the play, five characters in the play, right? And this published publication of this drama is year 1953, but we are reading it in the present time as well. That means this is something which is happening in the present scenario as well. So we should rather pay more. I mean, the dramas, the novels, all these things are so relevant that we are checking out when, even like 50, 60, 70, in fact, a decade, maybe a century later also, right? So that is the prolific part of the literature. Now, the setting of this play, the play is set in the suburb of London in the year 1950, and the action is taking place in the living room of Mrs. Pearson's house. Characters are Mrs. Annie Pearson, George Pearson, Doris Pearson, Cyril, and Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now we will check out each one of it. I mean, today we will check out the question answers, we will check out the character sketch plus the theme, right? But first of all, let's just complete the whole chapter. So what all we have discovered, that Mrs. Pearson is very much, she's very much in trouble, that how her family is treating her, and she's very much annoyed by the fact that nobody is paying attention to her own existence. People take her efforts, people take her work as simply called as her responsibility. That is something which she's supposed to do. Nobody is very much interested in actually paying respect to her. So she shares this pain of her life with Mrs. Fitzgerald. So Mrs. Fitzgerald is somebody who has learned and okay, initially also we came to know the age difference of the two characters. So Mrs. Fitzgerald is somebody who is in her late 40s, right? Oh, sorry, she is in her late 50s, and our character Mrs. Doris Pearson, she is in her early 40s. Now, Mrs. Pearson is somebody who doesn't smoke at all. She is somebody who is very calm and composed. That is why when her family troubles her, she doesn't know how to deal with it. Right therein, Mrs. Fitzgerald takes up the action, saying that I have learned the magic from the East. And now, what magic I have already told you guys, ईस्ट का अगर रेफरेंस है यहाँ पे that clearly shows India. Now Britishers were here in India back then, and they used to consider India is a land of black magic, of superstitious, right? So that is what she is saying. Mrs. Fitzgerald is saying that I have learned this magic from the East. Now, what was this magic? That we can swap our personalities. Swap our personalities as in that how Mrs. Fitzgerald is in her real life, that characteristics will going to be transferred to Mrs. Pearson, and Mrs. Pearson's characteristics will move to Mrs. Fitzgerald. So the story continues, the personality swaps, and we have checked out that in the story, in the beginning itself, in the drama, Mrs. Fitzgerald was smoking. Now, when they change the personality, she takes away the cigarette from the new Mrs. Fitzgerald, right? That is that is Annie Pearson. So Annie Pearson takes away the cigarette from Mrs. Fitzgerald's hand, saying that you don't need it anymore. I am, this goes with my personality, and I need to take care of your family now. Now the story goes ahead, और हम लोग ने आगे देखा था that how she treats her daughter Doris. So Doris is somebody who is a very arrogant, although she's not arrogant initially, but because Mrs. Pearson tries to always do everything for her, that is why Doris has become such a rude person. Now Doris enters into the scene and she asks her mother that is her yellow silk is being ironed, and she simply said no. Then she asked for the tea and she simply said no, I haven't prepared it for you. So herein she got really shocked that how is it possible that her mother has not done anything which she was in need of, right? And then she simply tells her that I'm going out with Spence, right? And for that, Charlie Spence, and for that, I need you to iron my yellow silk. And then she's like, I simply don't like this boyfriend of yours who is half witted, like who has got half brains and who has got buck teeth. So that is why I do not like your this boyfriend, this view of yours. And if I would have been dead also, that time only itself, I would not have dated Charlie Spence, a man like Charlie Spence. He is somebody to whom I would never ever would like to date. And then the story continues. She goes into her room and she started crying. Now next is Cyril. Cyril is Mrs. Pearson's son. He enters into the scene, and therein Mrs. Pearson simply asked her that where is the stout. So stout is basically a alcohol. It is basically an alcohol. So he's like, why do you need alcohol? And first of all, you don't drink at all. But why are you asking for it? And she's like, oh, is it somewhere a law that I can't drink liquor? I can't drink alcohol. And he really got shocked by listening this comment by his own mother, because his mother never ever talked to him like that. Then the two siblings started talking and they decided that let the father come and then we will see how she will going to react. So from here we have to begin from page number 41, and as I have already told you, we will check out the themes, the character sketch, everything of this chapter. Alright, so I'm beginning from whatever is written in the square bracket. Yeah. Mrs. Pearson enters right, carrying a bottle of stout and a half-filled glass. Stout is, I told you, a liquor. So now this glass was half filled. Cyril and Doris try to stop their gawping. Gawping means laughing. They were like laughing, they were giggling. But they are not quick enough. But they weren't able to stop their laughter because that they thought that that their mother has met with an accident wherein somehow she has injured her brains. Right? She's injured her head. That is why she's acting so weird. But then they're assuming that let their father come and then we will see how she will react to it. How when they will going to see when she will going to see her own husband. Mrs. Pearson coldly, you two are always talking about being grown up. Why don't you both try for once to be your age? And she told her, I mean, Mrs. Pearson simply tell this thing to her grown up children that you always talk about that you guys are grown ups, and if you guys think you are grown up, so why don't you try to act according to your age? Right? So she is commenting on the way they behave. They always used to tell her that we are grown ups, but they never ever reacted as if of their age. She moves to the settee and sits. So she sits on the settee. Cyril, Cyril is the son, right? Yeah. Can't we laugh now? And he's asking his mother, so what do you think? We can't even laugh now. Mrs. Pearson, yes, if it's funny, go on, tell me, make me laugh. I could do with it. So she's like, yeah, if you think it's funny, then please go for it, and then even tell me also so that I can also laugh. Doris, you never understand our jokes, mom. And then she tells it to her own mother that, mom, you don't even understand our jokes, so there's no sense of you knowing it. Now, guys, we're on page number 42 of your book. I was yawning at your jokes before you were born, Doris, and like any other strict mom, okay, she simply said that I used to yawn at your jokes before you were born. So that is something very surprising which is coming on Mrs. Pearson's part. Doris, almost tearful again. Now she's almost on the verge of crying. What's making you talk like this? What have we done? And she's like, why are you talking so weirdly with each one of us? What have we done? Mrs. Pearson promptly, like in a fraction of seconds, nothing but come in, ask for something, go out again, then come back when there is nowhere else to go. So she's like, no, no, you haven't done something. It is something like you come home, you stay here, then you go out, then when you don't have any place to go, then you come back home again. So that is what your routine is all about. Cyril aggressively, now he got really angry, okay? Look, if you won't get tea ready, then I will find something to eat myself. And he's like, अगर आपने हम लोग के लिए tea prepare नहीं किया, so then I will going to find something to eat for my own self. Like I'm going to search in the kitchen to eat for something to get in so that I can eat something. So Mrs. Pearson's like, yeah, why not help yourself? She's like, yeah, yeah, go, go. Why not go and help yourself? And then she again takes a sip of stout. Cyril, turning on his way to the kitchen, mind you, I think it's a bit thick. I have been working all day. So look at the body language. Look at the way Cyril is talking to his own mother. That is really disappointing at the first place. So turning on his way to the kitchen, mind you, I think it's bit thick. So the way you are reacting, mom, it is going really, really, really bad. So, and you know what? I have been working all day. So you have no right to talk to me this way. She's like, yeah, same here. Even I'm working throughout the day. Doris said that even I'm working throughout the day, so please don't talk to us like this. Now, Mrs. Pearson very calmly says, yeah, you work for 8 hours a day, right? Cyril, yes, 8 hour day. And don't forget it. And Cyril is like, yes, we do work 8 hours a day. And don't forget it. So Mrs. Pearson is like, I have done my 8 hours. So she's like, okay, you guys go out. You work for 8 hours, right? So till now, it's 4 already, 4 p.m. in the evening itself, right? So I have done my 8 hours already and I'm done for the day. Cyril on it replies, that's different. And he's like, no, that's completely different. What you do at home is different, and what we do at, outside home is something different. So don't compare our work. Cyril simply says, no, that's different. Of course it is, says Doris. Mrs. Pearson again very calmly. Again, kids, if you have noticed the body language of each of the character, Mrs. Pearson throughout the time is very calm and composed. It is the siblings, it is Cyril and Doris who are aggravated by the way Mrs. Pearson is acting. They're really going aggressive, right? Because they have never ever seen their mother talking to them like this ever in their entire lives. Mrs. Pearson, it was. Now it isn't. 44-week all for all now. Just 44-week all now. Okay, just wait, watch it at the weekend when I have my 2 days off. She's like, yeah, okay, now you guys wait for the weekend wherein I'm going to have week, I mean 2 days off. That is Saturdays and Sunday. Doris and Cyril exchanged alarmed glances. And now they got really shocked. They were like really alarmed and they checked out, they stared at each other. Then they stared at Mrs. Pearson, बहुत ही calm, बहुत ही शांत. Calmly is like बहुत ही calm and composed होकर. You know, like बहुत ही, she never raised her pitch. बहुत ही calm, बहुत शांति से she was explaining it to, I mean, she was talking to her own children. Now, Cyril, sorry, yeah, Cyril must grab something to eat. So now Cyril decided that I need something to eat. Looks as if I will need to keep my strength up. And he is simply saying that मुझे लगता है कि मुझे मेरी strength को high रखना पड़ेगा. And for that I need to go and eat something. So now Cyril finally leaves the room. Right now, Doris is still there and moving to the settee anxiously, like she's very conscious also this time. Mummy, you don't mean you are not going to do anything on Saturday and Sunday? And now she's going really confused and she's simply asking her mum, that you sure, right? I mean, that was simply a joke which you just cracked, that you will not going to do anything on Saturdays and Sundays. Mrs. Pearson, airy, matlab, it's full of arrogance and attitude, okay? Like she's so high of herself now. No, I wouldn't go that far. So she's simply saying, no, 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 wait, I will not going to go that far. It is not simply like that I will not going to work on Saturdays and Sundays. I might make a bed or two and do a bit of cooking as a favor. She's like, you know what, I'll do couple of things. Maybe I'll make a bed for all of you and I can do cooking a little bit as a favor on each one of you. Which means, of course, I will have to be asked very nicely and thanked for everything and generally made a fuss of. And she's simply saying that, you know, whatever work I'm doing, so you have to thank me for that. And whatever work you want me to do, you need to ask me in a very generous manner, right? You need to thank every time whatever I'm doing it for you. And you need to ask very nicely if you want your work to be done by me. But any of you 40-hour a weekers who expect to be waited on hand and foot on Saturday and Sunday with no thanks for it are in for a nasty disappointment. And she's simply saying that you guys who work for these many long hours, you are like a clear disappointment on Saturdays and Sundays. You don't work at all. You don't even move your hands and your foot on these days. Might go off for the weekend perhaps. And she's like, with this, the way you guys react, I think even I will go for a weekend off for you know, maybe. I mean, I do have a plan. Aghast. And now she's like really shocked. Doris is like shocked to see her mother is talking to her in this way. Go off for a weekend? And she's like, you are planning to go for a weekend? Mrs. Pearson, why not? I could do with a change. And she's like, yeah, why not? Even I need a change. I'm doing everything every day. The same monotony is there, and even I need to break that monotony. So why not? I mean, जैसे हम लोग नहीं बाहर जाते weekends पे that woohoo, there is no school tomorrow, there is no office for me tomorrow. So that is how we chill on weekend, and that is what she's also telling that yes, even I will not going to work on weekend. Stuck here day after day, week after week. If I don't need a change, who does? And she's like, I am the person who is stuck here every day, week by week, week after week. I am doing the same thing. So, who needs this change the most? That is definitely me, Doris. But where would you go? Who would you go with? And she's like, okay, since you have a plan, but now where would you go? And with whom you will going to go out on your weekend? Mrs. Pearson says, that's my business. You don't ask me where you should go and what and who you should go with to you. And she's like, that's my business, okay? You are my simply a daughter, so stay in your limits. And on top of it, you never ask me with whom you are going. I mean, when Doris herself goes out, okay, she doesn't ask her mother at all that where is she going, should she go or not, and with whomsoever she is going, she never takes or seeks permission from her mother. So she's like, in the same way, even I'm not going to ask you, or even I'm not going to tell you where I am going. Doris says, that's different. So she simply says, that's different, it's my own desire, it's my own choice that I don't want to answer you, but you can't do the same with me. Mrs. Pearson, the only difference is that I am a lot older and better able to look after myself. And she's like, only one difference is there, and that is मैं तुमसे बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ी हूँ, plus I can take care of myself. So it's you who should do the asking. And she's making it clear that rather it should be you. You should ask me before you are going anywhere that you should go or not. It should not be vice versa that I am asking or seeking your permission. Rather, you should seek my permission before going out. Doris is like burnt, okay? She's dead now. Doris, did you fall or hit yourself with something? So she's like, I mean, what's wrong with you? Why you're talking to me like this? Did you fall or by accident you have hit like on your in your head? Like something is really wrong with you. Mrs. Pearson coldly, no. But I will hit you with something, girl, if you don't stop asking silly questions. She's like, wait, I have not met with any sort of accident, but the way you are asking me, girl, I will surely going to hit you if you will not going to stop asking these silly questions. Doris stares at her, open mouth, ready to cry, and now Doris is like out of words, okay? She doesn't know how to react at all. So she's standing there with open mouth and she was about to cry. Doris, oh, this is awful. And she begins to cry, not passionately. So, I mean, not passionately in a way that the tears start dropping from her cheeks, all right? But she's not like very much crying, but then she was sobbing, okay? Mrs. Pearson coldly, stop blubbering. And blubbering means stop trying, stop acting, okay? You are not a baby. If you are old enough to go out with Charlie Spence, you are old enough to behave properly. Now stop it. And she's like, if you're old enough that you can go out with Charlie Spence, so you have to act according to your age and you don't need to cry about everything possible. All right. So you better stop crying. Now, George Pearson enters left. So here comes the husband. He's about 50. Check out the characteristics, okay, how he's being defined. He's 50, fundamentally decent, but solemn. Solemn is like he's very serious, okay? He's no shits given type of a person, rather. So he's serious, self-important, who thinks I am like super important, okay? Pompous again mean like who thinks I am perfect in every way and I don't need anybody. That is like so full of yourself, right? अब अपने लिए इतने ज़्यादा खुश हो, like you think कि बाकी लोग stands nowhere in front of you. That is pompous. Preferably, he should be a heavy, slow-moving type. He notices Doris's tears. So now, अगर आप लोग ये play stage कर रहे हो, so this is supposed to be somebody who is like little bit heavy, okay, and somebody who walks slowly because maybe of his weight. And now, when he enters, he notices Doris's tears. George. Who is George? Husband. Mrs. Pearson's husband. Hello, what's this? Can't be anything to cry about. And he's like, wait, why are you crying? What is the reason that why you're dropping your tears? Why you're dropping your tears? Yeah, through sobs. And you will see. And she's like, wait, you will see why I'm dropping my tears, why I'm sobbing. Doris runs off, left with a sob or two on the way. George stares after her a moment, then looks at Mrs. Pearson. She simply said, you will see why I'm crying, and then she left. Now George is looking at Mrs. Pearson like, what just happened? Why is she crying? George, did she say you will see? And George is simply asking, like, by any chance, did she say that you will see? Mrs. Pearson, yes. George, what did she mean? Mrs. Pearson, better ask her. So she's like, stop asking me these questions. Go and ask Doris, okay? Why you're asking me? Why you're pestering me over her crying? Go and ask her directly. George looks slowly again at the door, then at Mrs. Pearson. So from the door from which Doris left, so he simply looks at that, and then again he looks at Mrs. Pearson. Then he notices the stout that Mrs. Pearson raises for another sip. There was a glass, okay, of stout, again a liquor, and she was about to take a sip, and then he notices that his eyes almost bulge, and bulge is like aake bahar aa jana, like So he got a bulgy eyes because he could never ever thought that his wife is drinking. Now, guys, we're on page number 44 of your book. Yeah. Mhm. Yes. George, stout? So George is like, he's asking, you're drinking stout? Mrs. Pearson, yes. George, amazed. And now he's like totally shocked. He never expected this from his own wife. What are you drinking stout for? And he's like, what is the occasion? Why you been drinking? And that was stout. Because I fancied some. So she's like, because I desired, because I wanted to. Because I wanted to, and that is why I'm drinking. Why you been making a big fuss out of it? George, at this time of day? So you're drinking alcohol at this time of the day? Bewildered. Bewildered again means shocked. Nothing, I suppose, Annie. But I have never seen you do it before. And he's like, wait, I've never seen you drinking stout before. And that is why I'm simply curious. Why you been drinking? Is there any occasion? Mrs. Pearson, well, you are seeing me now. And she's like, okay, I know you haven't seen me ever drinking stout, but then you have seen me now. So please enjoy the look. George with heavy distaste, and he acts like, my God, what is she doing and why is she even drinking? So he simply gave a very disgusted look to his own wife. Yes, and I don't like it. It doesn't look right. I'm surprised at you. And imagine, guys, agar stout, agar liquor घर में है, so George is drinking that. That is why they own it at home, right? Now, when his own wife is drinking, he is not liking the whole idea. So herein we can see gender politics, that when a women do something, male consider that as a very downtrodden. Like women should not do that. But when the same thing a man does, that is being considered as masculinity. So यहाँ पे अगर stout घर पे है, अगर liquor घर पे है, so if George is drinking, that is absolutely fine. But when his own wife is drinking that, he simply can't accept it. He's so shocked that how can she drink, and that too in the afternoon, and he gave a very disgusting look to her. And on this, Mrs. Pearson simply replies that, okay, I know you haven't seen me ever drinking, but then you can see me now that yes, I am drinking. George, with heavy distaste, yes, and I don't like it. It doesn't look right. I'm surprised at you. And he's like, okay, I can see you, but then you can't do it. I'm not liking it. So you should not do it, okay? So यहाँ पे the husband, the masculine, that is like very यहाँ पे we can clearly see the gender difference, that how men treats that how how it is acceptable for men in the society to drink but not for women. Mrs. Pearson, well, that ought to be a nice change for you. And she's like, okay, you haven't seen me ever drinking, right? तो तुम्हारे लिए अच्छा चेंज जाएगा. Check it out that how I am drinking it. George, what do you mean? And he's like super shocked, okay? He's simply asking, like, what do you mean? Mrs. Pearson, it must be some time since you were surprised at me, George. So she's like, बहुत time हो गया that you haven't shown any sort of surprise. So it's a surprise for you, George, and enjoy it. I don't like surprises. I'm all for a steady going on. And he's like, wait, I do not like surprises. And I'm somebody who is like, who likes steady going on. Like, same cheese, proper wahi ki wahi chalti rahe. I'm somebody like who likes that. You ought to know that by this time. And George is telling this to his own wife that तुम्हें इतने सालों में तो पता चल ही जाना चाहिए था that what kind of a person I am and what kind of things I like. I don't like surprises और जैसी monotonous, जैसी boring और जैसी straight life चलती आ रही है वही होनी चाहिए. I don't want any thrills. By the way, I forgot to tell you this morning I wouldn't want any tea. So he's simply saying that, oops, I forgot to tell you. In the morning it says that I don't want any tea, right? Special snooker match night at the club tonight. And he's saying that, we have got a snooker match. Snooker match is like a pool, okay? Pool table hoti hai, like pool, and it's a table, okay, with different balls on it, and then you have to use a stick to play that game, right? That is called as snooker or pool. So it's like we have got a special night tonight, and therein we all are planning to play snooker. It's a match, so I'm going there tonight. I don't need any tea. And a bit of supper going. And supper, I told you, मैंने last time भी discuss किया था. Supper means dinner, light dinner. Okay, so and he's like, there's a dinner as well, so I don't need any tea today. So no tea. Mrs. Pearson, that's all right. There isn't any. And she's like, yeah, that's all right. And basically, there is no tea in the house. George, astonished. Again, George is like shocked. You mean you didn't get any ready? And he's like, what? What do you mean? I mean, there isn't any. That means you haven't prepared any till yet. Like, there is no tea yet. Mrs. Pearson, yes, and a good thing too, as it's turned out. And she's like, yeah, there's no tea, and it looked like it that it was a good thing, okay? Just abhi situation ho gayi that you don't want a tea. So thankfully, I didn't make it. Mrs. Pearson, yes. Oh, sorry. Aggravate. Aggravate is like agitated, like full of anger, very angry, aggressive. That's all very well, but suppose I would wanted some, and he's like, yeah, okay, I got it. But imagine I wanted some, still you haven't prepared any tea. That is like really bad of you. Mrs. Pearson, my goodness, listen to the man. Annoyed because I don't get a tea for him that he doesn't even want. And check out, I mean, guys, I mean, you'll be like super shocked how Mrs. Pearson is reacting to it. Nobody ever expected her to be so rude. And she's like, my goodness, huh? Listen to the man. Annoyed. And this man is annoyed because I don't get a tea for him, because I don't get a tea because I haven't prepared any tea. And that tea he never even wanted at the first place. He never wanted it. उसको चाहिए भी नहीं थी और मैंने बनाई भी नहीं. And still he's annoyed. Still he's going aggravated because I haven't prepared any. Ever tried that at the club? And she's like, ये जो आपका attitude है, you have ever tried this at the club? Tried what at the club? And George is like, tried what at the club? Going up to the bar and telling them you don't want a glass of beer, but you are annoyed because they haven't already poured it out. So she's like, you're going to the bar and telling the bartender that I don't want a glass of beer, and you are showing your tantrums. You are really annoyed because at the first place he haven't even poured beer till now. So have you ever tried that? Have you like literally did that? Try that on them and see what you get. And she's like, wait, if you haven't, so go and try out the same attitude, the same tantrum, the same statement on the bartender, and then check out what will you get. George, I don't know what you're talking about. And George is like, Again, George is like, okay, he's super shocked, thinking what is with his wife and why she's talking to him in such a weird manner. So he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Mrs. Pearson. They would laugh at you even more than they do now. And she's like, अगर तुमने ये किया that you are going to the bar tender, you are, and then you are telling him that I don't want a beer, I don't want a glass of beer, and then you will going to show your anger saying that you haven't poured a beer to me till now. So if you will going to do that, check out how the bartender and everybody treats you in the bar. So basically, everybody laughs at you way too often. Now, guys, we're on page number 45. Indignantly. I told you multiple times the meaning of the word indignantly. That means like angrily, like showing lots and lots of anger. Laugh at me? They don't laugh at me. And he's like, what? They laugh at me? Wait, my friends, my colleagues, they never laugh at me. Mrs. Pearson says, of course they do. And she's like, what do you think? Wait, of course they do laugh at you. You ought to have found that out by this time. And she's like, तुम्हें तब तक समझ में आ ही जाना चाहिए था that they all laugh at you. You haven't discovered it till now. Anybody else would have done. And she's like, तुम्हारी जगह पे और कोई और होता तो he would have really got it that everybody laughs at you. You are one of their standing jokes. And she's calling him and she's telling him that you are, they're one of the standing jokes. Famous, like everybody knows you and everybody cracks a joke on you. They call you Pompey Ompy Pearson, and they call you, guys, please mark this as important. They call you Pompey Ompy Pearson, like somebody who is very high of himself or herself, right? And who thinks that I have got all the knowledge and I'm the best person in the world. So that is Pompey, right? Pompous. And they all call you Pompey Ompy Pearson because they think you are so slow and pompous, and they all think that you are so slow and you are pompous too. George, horrified. Never! And he's like, no, never. Nobody calls me that. Mrs. Pearson, it's always beaten me why you should want to spend so much time at a place where they are always laughing at you. And she's like, मैं ना हमेशा सोचती रहती थी, I always used to wonder that why you want to spend so much of your time at a place where all of them are laughing at you behind your back. तुम्हारे पीठ पीछे वो सब तुम लोगों पे वो सब लोग तुम पे हंसते हैं, and still you want to spend your precious time with them. They're always laughing at you behind your back and calling your names, और वो तुम्हें different different names से भी बुलाया करते हैं. Leaving your wife at home night after night, and you are the man who leaves your wife at home every night, and you go out with the lot who makes fun of you at your back, who gives you a name, who calls out you with different names, okay? And then you still want to spend your time with them instead of going out with her who doesn't make you look a fool. And तुम उसके साथ नहीं जाते हो जो कि तुम्हें, who will not going to make a fool of you. So instead of investing in this, instead of spending your time with your wife, you go out with those people, with those morons who actually make fun of you. Cyril enters right. Now Cyril is who? He is the son. Now the son enters into right with a glass of milk in one hand. As we all know, he went to the kitchen saying, "No, I need something to eat." So he comes out with a glass of milk in one hand and a thick slice of cake in the other. And he was carrying a thick slice of cake. George, almost dazed, turns to him appealingly. So now George is like all confused, all shocked, okay? And then he turns to his son, that is Cyril. George, here, Cyril, you have been with me to the club once or twice. And now वो उससे validation ले रहा है. He's simply asking, he's simply, making it clear that you have been to club with me maybe twice or thrice. They don't laugh at me and call me Pompey Ompy Pearson, do they? So he's asking, he's making it clarifying that do they call me Pompey Ompy Pearson? Do they? Like, you sure? Because you've been with me to the club many a times, maybe two, three times, so you must be knowing it. Cyril embarrassed, hesitates. Now Cyril is really embarrassed and he hesitates, okay? Angrily. Now he shows a little bit of anger. Go on, tell me, do they? So he is simply asking, like, go on, tell me, do they, like, do they really talk about me like that? Ooh, that's really weird, okay? Um, Cyril, embarrassed. Well, yes, Dad, I'm afraid they do. And he's simply saying that, yes, Dad, I'm afraid I never want to tell it to you, but then, yes, they do call you Pompey Ompy Pearson. George slowly looked from one to the other, staggered. Now George was simply looking from one to the other in a very staggered, like very, he's like really shocked. He don't know what to say, and now he's all dumb. George slowly, well, I am damned, and then well, I'm damned. Okay, like I'm so done with this. I never knew that they used to call me with this. So I'll be damned means that is like hell. So hell is damn, right? George exits left slowly, almost as if somebody had hit him over the head. So now George leaves the scene, and it looked like the way he left the scene, it looked like that somebody has hit his head. He was really, he didn't, I mean, obviously he was embarrassed also, and he never expected that his own friend, with whom he used to spend all his nights, had given him a name, right? The way he's being treated by his own friends, he never liked it at all. Cyril, after watching him go, turns indignantly to Mrs. Pearson. So now Cyril is like, he didn't like that how his father is being felt by his own mother. So now he turns and he speaks with his wife, oh sorry, with his mother, and now he's again very angry. Now you shouldn't have told him that, mom. And Cyril is like, mom, you should not have told this thing to at least dad. That's not fair. You have hurt his feelings, mine too. So you have hurt his feelings by telling that how his friends, has given him a bad name and how they all treat him. So basically, you have hurt his feelings as well as my feelings too. Mrs. Pearson, sometimes it does people good to have their feelings out. And she's like, कई बार ना ये अच्छा होता है कि लोग अपनी feelings सामने वाले को बताए एंड टू हैव देयर फीलिंग्स हर्ट और इससे अगर उनकी जो फीलिंग्स है हमें ना सामने वाले को सच बताना चाहिए बिकॉज दे शुड नो दैट हाउ एवरीबडी इज ट्रीटिंग देम एंड रादर आई मीन कई बार अगर फीलिंग्स हर्ट भी हो जाए तो इट्स ओके द ट्रूथ ought not to hurt anybody for long. It should be right that the reality is the truthfulness is that we should not keep hurting somebody for so long. If your father didn't go to the club so often, perhaps they would stop laughing at him. And she's simply saying that if your father didn't go, अगर तुम्हारे father almost हर दिन club में नहीं जाते, so maybe he would not have become the laughing stock from everybody out there. Cyril, gloomily, I doubt it. Gloomy means sad. And he simply says that I doubt it. Now, please come on page number 46. Hmm. Mrs. Pearson, severely. Possibly you do, but what I doubt is whether your opinion's worth having. She's like, obviously you don't agree with me, but is it something like your opinions does matter to me? Are your opinions worth of anything? What do you know? Nothing. You spend too much time and good money at greyhound races and dirt tracks and ice shows. And she's like, why do you? I mean, you have I'm not paying any attention to your opinions also. You spend basically most of your time in playing games. Your money is also you are wasting on greyhound races, dirt tracks, and ice shows. So it doesn't even matter. What do you think? What is your opinion? Sulkily. Now he got annoyed. Okay, and now he's not liking the way his mother is talking to him. Well, what if I do? I have got to enjoy myself somehow, haven't I? And she's like, इसमें मैं क्या करूँ? मुझे भी I need to enjoy myself, haven't I? So what is the big thing about it? Let me do that. I wouldn't mind so much if you were really enjoying yourself. But are you? And she's like, I don't mind. मुझे कभी बुरा नहीं लगता अगर तुम सच में बहुत ज़्यादा enjoy कर रहे होते. But are you actually enjoying? Are you actually enjoying wasting your own money and playing those games? And where is it getting you? और ये जो ये सब games खेल रहे हो, ये जो तुम अपने पैसे waste कर रहे हो, where exactly all of this thing is taking you? There's a sharp, hurried knocking heard of left. And then there's a sharp, hurried knocking heard of left. That somebody was entering and we could hear the knocking. Cyril, might be for me, I will see. And Cyril simply says that, there must be somebody for me, somebody must be calling me, so I'll go and check. Cyril hurries out left. In a moment, he re enters, closing the door behind him. So now he left, and then he again comes back and he closed that door behind him. Hi, Harshit. It's that silly old bat from next door, and he is calling Mrs. Fitzgerald. It's that silly old bat from the next door. That is the neighbor, Mrs. Fitzgerald. You don't want her here, do you? And and he simply asks his mother that I don't think so. You need that old woman, that silly old woman out there, do you? Now, guys, if you already know, in the house itself, who was there? That was Mrs. Fitzgerald in the body of Mrs. Pearson. Right? So he's actually commented on Mrs. Fitzgerald herself. Right? And he never knew that Mrs. Fitzgerald is right there and he called her silly old bat from that next door. Mrs. Pearson sharply. Now, all which is mentioned as Mrs. Pearson, but we know this is Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is in the body of Mrs. Pearson. Sharply. Certainly I do. And she's like, yeah, surely I want to see Mrs. Fitzgerald. Ask her in. And in fact, she ordered him that ask her in, call her in. And don't call her a silly old bag either. And she's like, let me remind you, dare not call her a silly old bag. She's a very nice woman with a lot more sense than you will ever have. And she made it very clear that, she's a very nice woman and she's got lots and lots of brains. She's got lots and lots of senses, which maybe you will never ever get in your entire life. So you should better show respect to her. Sorry. Yeah. Cyril exits left. Mrs. Pearson finishes her stout. So now Mrs. Pearson was drinking her liquor, right? She was drinking, and now she finishes her with her stout. Smacking her lips. Now she was like, she removed the, like the liquor from her lips. Cyril re-enters left, ushering in Mrs. Fitzgerald, who hesitates in the doorway. Now, why is she hesitating? Because in reality, this is Mrs. Pearson herself. Although she was in the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald, but in reality, she was Mrs. Pearson. So Cyril basically अपनी ही mom को बाहर से लेके आ रहा है, and we already know what is the personality of Mrs. Pearson, that she is somebody who is who is very hesitant, who never wanted to reveal her sadness to everybody. And now when she enters, now she's very much worried that everybody in the house will recognize her, but nobody ever did. Come in, Mrs. Fitzgerald. So, Mrs. Pearson is saying this to Mrs. Fitzgerald, come in, come in. Mrs. Fitzgerald moving to left center anxiously. Now, why anxiously, guys? As you already know, that is the personality of Mrs. Pearson, that she never used to be so confident. So, she's very anxious right now. I just wondered if everything's all right. And so Mrs. Fitzgerald is asking, like, is everything all right at my home? Like, I don't think there's any problem in the house. Cyril sulkily, no, it isn't. So Cyril replies on that, yeah, there is no problem at all. Mrs. Pearson sharply, of course it is. You be quiet. So now check out the way Mrs. Pearson is dealing with Cyril, and she is asking her, Son, rather, that you have to be quiet. This is not the way to talk to a guest. Indignantly and loudly. Why should I be quiet? And Cyril is like, why should be quiet? Miss Pearson shouting, because I tell you to, you silly spoiled young pie can. And she's like, because I have asked you to stay quiet. So you silly spoiled young pie can, you better be quiet. And now Mrs. Pearson is yelling, is shouting. This is something which in reality Mrs. Pearson would have never ever done. But because we already know that Mrs. Fitzgerald, okay guys, all those who have skipped this part out, Mrs. Fitzgerald and Mrs. Pearson ने अपनी personalities change कर लिए थे. They were in each other's body. So now Mrs. Pearson itself, I mean she herself is there, but उनके अंदर spirit है, उनके अंदर जो the because of magic whatever dialogues are being said, these are basically by Mrs. Fitzgerald. So, Mrs. Fitzgerald protesting nervously. Now, why is she protesting? Because she could never even ever imagine that she is actually protesting her own son, right? और वो देख रही हैं कि Mrs. Pearson, जो कि actually Mrs. Fitzgerald है, वो इतनी rudely बात कर रही हैं उनके खुद के बेटे से, like Mrs. Pearson के बेटे से. So she never expected that. Yes, they have changed their souls, Harshit, because of magic. Okay, so Mrs. Fitzgerald knew this magic wherein the body can be same, but the personalities can be altered. So they have swapped their own personalities. Mrs. Pearson, severely. Now, Mrs. Fitzgerald, let me manage my family in my own way, please. And now Mrs. Pearson is simply saying that, let me manage my family in my own way, please. Mrs. Fitzgerald, yes, but Cyril, and she's like, yeah, okay, that's fine, but Cyril sulkily and glowingly, Mr. Cyril Pearson to you, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Cyril stalks off into the kitchen. Cyril was right there, and Cyril is telling this to Mrs. Fitzgerald, Mr. Cyril Pearson to you, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. So she's saying, Cyril is telling this thing to his own mother that you better call me Mr. Cyril Pearson, okay? I have got my own title with me, so treat me that. And he starts moving towards the kitchen. Now, guys, I'm requesting all of you to come on page number 47 of your book. Mrs. Fitzgerald moving to the settee, whispering, oh dear, what's happening? Now she's like so confused because she never have seen her family, talking in such a way ever in her entire life. Mrs. Pearson calmly, nothing much, just putting them in their places, that's all. So she's like, nothing much here. I was just putting each one of them at their specific places. They should know how they all are supposed to react, how they all are supposed to be part of, social gatherings, how they should treat their mother. Doing what you ought to have done long since. And she's saying, simply, I am doing what you were supposed to do years back, but then it's okay. Mrs. Fitzgerald, is George home? So she simply asks that is her own husband, George, is there at home? She sits beside Mrs. Pearson on the settee. So she sits next to Mrs. Pearson. Mrs. Pearson, yes, I have been telling him what they think of him at the club. And she told Mrs. Pearson in reality that, I have told your husband that what all the club members call your husband in the club. That is Pompey Pearson, right? So I have told your husband the reality that what his own friends call him in the club. Mrs. Fitzgerald, well, they think a lot of him, don't they? And she's like, yeah, I know. They think a lot of him, don't they? Mrs. Pearson, no, they don't. And now he knows it. And she's simply saying that, he used to think that all his friends used to value him a lot. But you know the reality, right? They never ever value him at all. Mrs. Fitzgerald nervously, oh dear, I wish you hadn't. And she's like, oh my god, I wish you never ever told my own husband that how his friends treat him. Mrs. Fitzgerald, Mrs. Pearson, nonsense, doing them all a world of good. And they all be eating out of your hand soon, you will see. And she's like, nonsense, I have told them the reality. And now they will going to hear this from your own, from you as well. And they will not going to eat out of, they will going to eat off your hand soon. Mrs. Fitzgerald, I don't think I want them eating out of my hand. Mrs. Pearson simply says impatiently. Now she got really impatient. Well, whatever you want, they will be doing it, all three of them. And she's like, whatever you want them, howsoever you want it, they will going to react, they will going to behave in the same way. All three of them. Mark my words, Mrs. Pearson. And she simply said that you mark my words, Mrs. Pearson, they all will going to listen to you. Whatever you want them to do, they will surely going to do it. George enters left glumly. So now George enters into the scene and he's very, he is like, he's very much shattered now because he knows that how his friends call him in the club. He is unpleasantly surprised when he sees the visitor. Now he's like a little bit shocked because now he was not in the mood to meet any of the visitor. So he's like unpleasantly surprised. He moves to the armchair left, sits down heavily and glumly lights his pipe. So he sits next to the two ladies and then he lit his pipe. Pipe means cigar. Then he looks from Mrs. Pearson to Mrs. Fitzgerald, who is regarding him anxiously. Now, actually, in reality, that is Mrs. Pearson. Now, who is Mrs. Fitzgerald? So, Mrs. Fitzgerald is like, she's showing a lot of regard and respect to George because she's the real wife. So, that is why she is showing some regard and, respect to George. Just looked in for a minute, I suppose, Mrs. Fitzgerald, and he's like, I just like for a minute, I suppose, Mrs. Fitzgerald, who doesn't know what she is saying. Well, yes, I suppose so, George. And these are like how these couples used to talk. And then when he says that, Mrs. Fitzgerald says the same thing which Mrs. Pearson is supposed to say. So now George is like aghast, and he's like, George, you called me George because according to George, according to Mr. Pearson, he is talking to the neighbor. That's Mrs. Fitzgerald. He never knew that in Mrs. Fitzgerald's body it is actually Mrs. Pearson, right? So now, and he's shocked that why his neighbor is calling him George. Why is she not calling him Mr. Pearson? Mrs. Fitzgerald. Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Pearson impatiently. What does it matter? Your name's George, isn't it? Who do you think you are? Duke of Edinburgh. And she's like, now, Mrs. Pearson, again, who is in the personality of Mrs. Fitzgerald. So she replies, what does it matter? Your name is George, isn't it? Like, your name is George, right? What do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Are you some Duke of Edinburgh? Duke is like, a position which is like kind of superior to the kings, okay? So she says that who do you think you are? Are you Duke of Edinburgh? Edinburgh is the name of a place which is there in London, in England. George angrily, what's he got to do with it? And he's like, what Duke of Edinburgh is this got to do with it? Just tell me that. And isn't it bad enough without her calling me George? And George is asking his own wife, who is disguised in the form of Mrs. Fitzgerald, that don't you think it's really wrong that she's just called me George? No tea, Pompey Pearson, and poor Doris has been crying her eyes out upstairs. Yes, crying her eyes out. And now George is telling that what is happening. She's calling me George. There is no tea prepared. People are calling me Pompey Pearson. Doris is upstairs who is crying and who has like gouged her eyes out because of crying. Mrs. Fitzgerald wailing. Now, guys, I'm on page number 48. If you are sitting with your books open, kindly come on that page. Mrs. Fitzgerald wailing. Like now, she is her heart just like pumping so high, so hard. Oh dear, I ought to have known. And she's like, oh my God, ये मुझे पता होना चाहिए था that this will going to go so bad. George staring at her, annoyed. Now George is like staring at Mrs. Fitzgerald is like why she is reacting the way his wife is supposed to react. Now he got really angry, got really annoyed. You ought to have known. And he's like, तुम्हें पता होना चाहिए था. You ought, why ought you have to know? And he's like, why you should know about it that my daughter is crying upstairs and people are calling me with the other names. Nothing to do with you. And it has nothing to do with you, so you better keep yourself out of the picture. Mrs. Fitzgerald, look, we are at sixes and sevens here just now, so perhaps you will excuse us. He tells that we are in a very bad situation right now. So you better leave all of us here, and it's time for you to excuse us. You better leave all of us. Mrs. Pearson, before Mrs. Fitzgerald can reply. So Mrs. Pearson says, I won't excuse you, George Pearson. Next time a friend and neighbor comes to see me, just say something when you see her. Good evening or how do you do? So she's like, wait, she's not going anywhere, okay, George Pearson? And next time when any of my friends or our neighbors are coming by or are stopping by, you have to say good evening or how do you do or something. And don't just march in and sit down without a word. And don't be like you just march into the room and you just sit down. These are like bad manners. So you be a gentleman and you should talk to my friends or neighbors respectfully. Mrs. Fitzgerald nervously. No, it's all right. And Mrs. Fitzgerald is like, no, it's okay. Don't scold my husband that bad. And then she's like, no, no, it's all right. Mrs. Pearson, no, it isn't all right. We will have some decent manners in this house. And she's simply making it clear that we need to have some decent manners in this house. This is not so cool. This is not so fine. How is he reacting? How he has just entered into the room and he didn't even greet you at all. This house is for gentlemen and he should not react this way. Or I will know the reason why. Glaring at George, well, so George is like really shocked. He got intimidated by the way his wife is treating him, right? And he is like super puzzled, okay? Well, what? Taunting him. So now Mrs. Pearson is taunting him. She is like making remarks about him. And she says, why don't you get off to your club? Special night tonight, isn't it? She's like, wait, you were supposed to go for your that special night, right? So go for it. Go enjoy with your friends. Go to your club. They will be waiting for you, wanting to have a good laugh, right? So she's like, they all must be waiting for you. You all will going to laugh. So you better should leave and meet your friends. Go on then. Don't disappoint them. And look, kitni taunting way mein she is speaking with her husband. Like obviously that's Mrs. Fitzgerald, but then she's speaking with her with George in a very taunting way that oh my God, you had a plan with your friends, right? You were supposed to go to a club. You had a special night, and then there is supposed to be a lot of laugh, and then why you're disappointing them? You should go and join them. George bitterly. Now George is like he got I mean he can't take it anymore. Okay, that's right. Make me look silly in front of her now. And he's like, yeah, yeah, that's right, okay. You please make me look silly in front of her also, in front of her neighbor also. Go on, don't mind me. And he's like, yeah, yeah, go ahead or bolo mere bare mein in front of our neighbor. Sixes and sevens, go on. Don't, oh, sorry. Sixes and sevens, poor Doris been crying her eyes out, getting the neighbors in to see the fun. And he's saying that our daughter Doris is crying upstairs, and you have called our neighbor to see the fun which we have got in the family. Suddenly losing his temper, glaring at Mrs. Pearson, shouting. Now he's losing his temper, he simply can't take it. And then he started shouting. All right. Let her hear it. What's the matter with you? Have you gone balmy or what? And he's like, if you want to make her hear everything, now let's just make her hear everything. What is wrong with you, huh? Have you gone balmy? Balmy, I told you, it simply means have you gone mad or insane? Or what? So now Mrs. Pearson jumping up savagely. Now she's gone all very, she's all gone very barbaric. She's like very savage in her way she's being presented, and she jumps up. If you shout at me again like that, George Pearson, I will slap your big fat silly face. And she simply told him, if you were going to shout at me, George Pearson, I'm going to give you a tight slap. I'm going to give you a big fat silly. I'm going to give you a slap on your big fat silly face. So now he never ever expected that his wife could ever talk to him in this way, and that too in front of a neighbor. He got really alarmed, he got really shocked, and this is something which he never ever expected from his own wife. Mrs. Fitzgerald moaning. Now, because we already know she is clearly Mrs. Pearson, so now she's like almost on the verge of crying, and then she's moaning. Oh no 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 no! Please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. And now, accidentally, she simply said, no no no! Please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. And Mrs. Pearson sit. And ye sunte hi, so the lady who's acting as Mrs. Pearson, she said, George, staring at her bewildered. So now George looks at her and he's really shocked. Either I'm off my chump, or you two are. And he's like, wait, something is really wrong with me, or something is wrong with two of you. How do you mean? No, no, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. So, and he's like, wait, what do you mean by that, Mrs. Fitzgerald? Look, you are Mrs. Fitzgerald. So, why are you telling yourself to stop when you are not doing anything? Guys, we're on page number 49 now. So, he's like, wait, you yourself is Mrs. Fitzgerald, right? So, how can you ask yourself to be quiet, to stop yourself? Something is really wrong, right? Tell her to stop. Then there would be some sense in it. And he's like, wait, you need to make her stop. Then only there'll be going to be, some sense in it. Now, so he's staring at Mrs. Pearson. I think you must be Tiddly. So Tiddly is like, you must be like really confused with things right now. So it's okay. We don't mind your presence to be here, staring up savagely. Now, Mrs. Pearson is like really rude, and now she looks at him savagely. Say that again, George Pearson. And she's like, wait, speak that thing again, George Pearson. The way what you just said right now, speak that thing again. Now, he got really, he's like very nervous now. He got really intimidated the way Mrs. Pearson is acting. And he's like, okay, all right, all right, all right. And he is about to leave. Doris enters, left slowly, looking miserable. She's still wearing the wrap. Mrs. Pearson sits on the settee. So now he is, he's still there, and now enters Doris. Who is Doris? The daughter. I mean, imagine what was the condition of George, right? He was he actually being treated in such a bad manner in front of the neighbor, right? So he's really shocked, and he didn't like that. And he got a hint that why is she calling Mrs. Fitzgerald, like, stop Mrs. Fitzgerald, right? Because that is she herself. So he got really shocked. Mrs. Fitzgerald, hello, Doris dear. So she simply says to Doris, hello, Doris dear. Doris miserably. Hello, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Why miserably? Because she's been crying for a very long time. Mrs. Fitzgerald, I thought you were going out with Charlie Spence tonight, and she is telling her that I thought you were going out with Charlie Spence tonight. Doris annoyed. What's that to do with you? And Doris is like really annoyed, okay? And she's like, why are you asking that? What difference it will going to bring to you? Why do you even want to know that? Mrs. Pearson sharply, stop that. And she yells at Doris, and then she says, stop that. Don't talk to her like that. Mrs. Fitzgerald nervously, no, it's all right. And she's like, okay, it's okay, it's okay. I mean, I'm fine. It's okay, all right. Mrs. Pearson severely, it isn't all right. I won't have a daughter of mine talking to anybody like that. And she's like, मुझे ऐसी बेटी नहीं चाहिए जो किसी से भी इतना rudely बात करे. I don't want somebody like her. Now, answer Mrs. Fitzgerald properly. And now she's like, you better answer Mrs. Fitzgerald properly, Doris, or go upstairs again. And she's like, either answer her properly or you better go upstairs. Doris looks wonderingly at her father, and like Doris like really shocked, and I mean she simply checks, I mean she simply looked at her father, and she was like, I need to be rescued from this situation, so you better tell me what's happening. George in despair. In despair it means that is like total sadness. Don't look at me, I give it up, I just give it up. And he's like, don't even look at me, I'm so done it with it, I have given up. So I give up, I give up, I simply can't do it. Now, um Mrs. Pearson fiercely well. So Mrs. Pearson simply says, now she's like very much, like she is shocked, and now she's angry also, obviously. Answer her. And she's like, answer her. Doris sulkily, I was going out with Charlie Spence tonight, but now I have called it off. She's like, yes, I was going out with Charlie Spence tonight, but then I have cancelled the whole plan. Mrs. Fitzgerald, oh, what a pity, dear. Why have you? And she's like, what? Why have you? It's such a sad news. Why you have cancelled your plan? Doris, with a flash of temper. Now she shows her temper, like she's really angry, okay? Because if you must know, my mother's been going on and mimicking me feel miserable. So my mother is actually making fun of and she's making my situation very miserable, and saying he's got buck teeth and is half witted. By saying that Charlie Spence has got buck teeth and he is half witted, he has got half brains. So that is why she spoiled my mood and I'm feeling so miserable. That is why I don't want to go out with Charlie Spence. Mrs. Fitzgerald rather bolted to Mrs. Pearson. Oh, you shouldn't have said that. And now she shows a little bit of anger to Mrs. Pearson that, you know what, you should not have done that. Just a second, guys. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Doris, fiercely, well, answer her. Oh, sorry, we have done this. Yeah. Mrs. Fitzgerald is actually scolding her and telling her that you should not have done that. Mrs. Pearson sharply, Mrs. Fitzgerald, I will manage my family, you manage yours. And now she tells her that Mrs. Fitzgerald, you manage your family and I'll manage yours. I mean, you go out and manage my family. I mean, you go and manage the other family, and I will manage your family. George grimly taking her off now. Are you Annie? And he's like, wait, are you Annie by any chance? Who was Annie? Annie is basically Mrs. Pearson herself. So he's looking at her, and he's asking, are you Annie? Mrs. Pearson, even more grimly, they are waiting for you at the club, George. Don't forget. And don't you start crying again, Doris. So now Mrs. Pearson simply tells him that, you know what, George, they all are waiting for you, your whole friends group. So you better go. Don't forget. And Doris, stop crying now. Mrs. Fitzgerald getting up with sudden decision. That's enough. Quiet, enough. And she's like, wait, that's it. Like, that's enough. Okay, stop it now. I don't want it anymore. George and Doris stare at her bewildered. So they both stare at her very, in a very shocked state. To George and Doris, now listen, you two. I want to have a private little talk with Mrs. Fitz. She corrects herself hastily with Mrs. Pearson, so I will be obliged if you will leave us alone for a few minutes. And she's like, now I want to speak with Mrs. Fitz. And he's like, wait, I want to speak with Mrs. Pearson now. So both of you better leave from here. I will let you know when we have finished. And she's like, whenever we'll be done with it, I will let you know. Go on, please. And now she's like, go on, leave this room, and I want to speak with her privately. I promise you that you won't regret it. And she's like, I promise you, you won't regret it. You will not be to miss anything from here. So you better go. Sorry, guys, I just wanted to tell you that we are on page 50 and a couple of pages are still there, and then we are done with this chapter. And we'll check out the theme, character sketch, and NCRT questions. I want, oh, sorry. Yeah. And I promise you that you won't regret it. And I promise each one of you that you will not going to regret it. There's something here that only I can deal with. And she's simply saying that, there's something with which only I can deal with. So you stay out of it. George rising, so he gets up from his table, from his chair, I mean. I'm glad somebody can. And he's like, oh my god, thankfully somebody can deal with it because I can't. Come on, Doris. And he simply says that, okay, at least somebody can deal with it because I simply can't do that. So he's telling his daughter that, you know what, come with me. Come on, Doris. George and Doris exit left. So now George and Doris leaves the room and they go. As they go, Mrs. Fitzgerald moves to left to the small table and sits. So as they both leave, Mrs. Fitzgerald moves to left and sits there. She eagerly beckons. She is eagerly, speaks Mrs. Pearson to do the same thing. So she in fact asks, with gestures she asks her to sit also. Mrs. Fitzgerald, Mrs. Fitzgerald, you must change back now. We really must. So she's saying that, you know what, Mrs. Fitzgerald, let's just swap our bodies. Let's just simply do that. Okay, we should not waste much of our time. Mrs. Pearson, rising, why? And he's like, why you want to do it so soon? Mrs. Fitzgerald, because this has gone far enough. And she's like, because this has gone really, really, really far. I can see they are all miserable. And she's like, I so can clearly see that each one of them are in a very miserable situation. Each one of them are in a very miserable condition. And I can't bear it and I can't simply see it. Mrs. Pearson, a bit more of the same would do them good. And she's like, wait, abhi thoda sa or, and that will going to make them good. So you don't worry about it. Making a great difference already. And she's like, अभी तो बहुत थोड़ा सा किया है और उसी में इतना ज़्यादा difference आ गया है. So let's just wait for a few more minutes and let's just do it. She moves to right on the of the table and sits. So she moves towards the right and then she sits. Mrs. Fitzgerald, no, I can't stand any more of it. I really can't. And she's like, no, I really can't do this. Okay, I simply can't do this. So please let's just swap our personalities again. We must change back. Hurry up, please, Mrs. Fitzgerald. And then she's like, please let us do it fast. Let's just hurry up. I just can't do this anymore. Mrs. Pearson, well, if you insist. And she's like, all right, if you insist, then yeah, sure, we can do this. Mrs. Fitzgerald, yes, I do. Please, please. And she's like, yeah, I do. Please, please, let's just swap our bodies. She stretches her hands across the table eagerly. Mrs. Pearson takes them. So now she stretches her arms out there and then Mrs. Pearson holds them. Mrs. Pearson, quiet now, relax. And she's like, now all you need to do is you need to be quiet, you need to be relaxed, you need to be calm down. Mrs. Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald stare at each other. Now they look at each other, muttering exactly as before. So, as they have muttered those words in the beginning itself, she muttered those words again. Arashta dum, arashta lum dum bona. And then, as you know, the magic takes place, and then they again swap their bodies. They carry out the same action as before, going lax. They suddenly it looked like that there was nothing in their body. It was like all loosened up and then coming to life. And then they again came back to life. But this time, of course, they become their proper personalities. And now finally they have got their original, they have got their real personalities back. Mrs. Fitzgerald. Oh, well, I enjoyed that. And she's like, oh my god, I so enjoyed that. Mrs. Pearson says, no, I didn't, but, and she did obviously because she couldn't see her family is being treated badly by somebody else. And she didn't like that her daughter was crying, George was devastated. Deepak, अभी बस chapter complete होने वाला है, but then we will check out themes and character sketch and question answers. So if you want to stay connected till then, please do. Choice is yours. Yeah. Well, you ought to have done. Now listen. She's like, you should have had great fun, but now you listen to me. Mrs. Pearson, don't go soft on them again, else it will all have been wasted. And she simply said that, don't go so soft on any one of them because इतना जो सब कुछ हमने किया है, वो सब कुछ waste हो जाएगा. So rather, you should keep up that spirit up again. Mrs. Pearson, I will try not to, Mrs. Fitzgerald. So, and she's like, yeah, I will try not to be so rude, Mrs. Fitzgerald. They have not had as long as I would like to have given them. Another hour or two's rough treatment might have made it certain. And she's like, जितना मुझे करना चाहिए था मैंने उतना नहीं किया तो, कुछ घंटे और ये लोग एकदम ठीक हो जाते. I'm sure they will. Yeah, and she's like, I'm sure they'll do better now, though I don't know how I'm going to explain. And she's like, I think all of them will be like nice people to me now, and I don't know how I'm going to explain that what all has happened to them was simply, like we have swapped up personalities and things like that. Mrs. Fitzgerald severely. Don't you start any explaining or apologizing, or you are done for. And she's like, wait, don't do that. Don't you dare to do that. If you will begin explaining anything or if you will begin apologizing for that, you know what? अभी तक हमने जितना सब कुछ किया था, it will be all wasted. We'll be like so done with it. So don't even try that. Mrs. Pearson with spirit. It's all right for you, Mrs. Fitzgerald. After all, they aren't your husband and children. And she simply said that, it is so easy for you to say like this because definitely they weren't your husband, they weren't your children, right? That is why you can be so rude. That is why you were like so hard hearted, right? But that is actually which I can't do with my own family. Again, guys, I want to tell how mothers are for their children, how actually wives are being taken in society. She is somebody who can actually see somebody else can do anything back to them, but if somebody else is trying to teach them lessons, she simply can't take that also. So these are wives, these are daughters, these are women basically to look at the larger picture, right? So they are like always very soft hearted towards their own family members, and they simply can't take that if they are in trouble, if they are crying, and if somebody else talk to them in a very rude manner. Mrs. Fitzgerald severely, okay, sorry, we have done, yeah. Mrs. Fitzgerald impressively. Now you listen to me. You admitted yourself you were spoiling them. And she's like, wait, now you listen to me. I don't feel bad about it. You only admitted yourself, you only accepted that all of them were spoiled because of you. आप ही ने उन्हें spoil किया है ना, एंड दे डिडंट अप्रिशिएट यू, और ये लोग आपकी किसी भी एफर्ट, आपकी किसी भी काम को अप्रिशिएट भी नहीं करते हैं. एनी अपॉलजीज, एनी एक्सप्लेनेशन, एंड यू विल बी स्ट्रेट बैक वेयर यू आर. एंड शी इज लाइक, इफ यू विल गोइंग टू ट्राई फॉर एनी अपॉलजीज, एनी एक्सप्लेनेशंस, नो, जहां से हमने स्टार्ट किया था, जैसे वो आपको ट्रीट कर रहे थे, दे विल कीप ऑन डूइंग दैट. I'm warning you, dear. Just give them a look, a tone of voice now and again to suggest you might be tough with them if you wanted to be. And she's like, I'm suggesting you maybe once or twice you need to provide that tone to all of them, okay? And then you need to suggest them that you can be tough when times require you to be, right? So you better do not talk to, you don't need to be so not so grateful to, I mean, they should not be uh, never so grateful and disrespectful towards you. And it ought to work anyhow. We can test it. And she's like, वैसे भी ये work करेगा, we simply can test it. Mrs. Pearson, how? Well, what is it you would like them to do that they don't do? Stop at home for once. And she's like, जो भी आपको नहीं पसंद है कि वो लोग को नहीं करना चाहिए, you have to stop them at once. And give me a hand with supper. And yes, and give me a hand with supper. Anything would you would like to do? Sorry, anything you would like them to do that you enjoy, whether they do or not. She's like, उन्हें ये सब feel करवाओ that whatever you enjoy, whatever you like to do. I mean, it's not like they simply enjoy it. You should also enjoy what they want you to be done. Hesitating. Well, yes, I like a nice game of rummy, but of course, I hardly ever have one except at Christmas. She's like, I like to play rummy, okay, but then nobody plays with me. We simply play once at like Christmas, okay, otherwise, we never play rummy. I like playing rummy, but nobody plays with me. Mrs. Fitzgerald getting up. That will do then. She's like, okay, that will do then. She moves towards the door, left and turns. But remember, keep firm. Be very strict, okay? And you have had it. And she's like, you can do it. You can be strict also. She opens the door, calling, "Hoy, you can come in now." And she calls everybody, you all can come in now. Coming away from the door and moving right slightly, quietly. But remember a firm hand. George, Doris and Cyril file in through the doorway. Filing मतलब एक proper एक line में आते हैं in a doorway, looking apprehensively, looking super confused at Mrs. Pearson. I'm just off to let you enjoy yourself. और Mrs. Fitzgerald ये बोल के जाती that I am leaving so that you all can enjoy yourself. Now we are on page number 52, the last page of this drama. The family looks anxiously at Mrs. Pearson, who smiles. Much relieved, they smile back at her. So now the family looks at Mrs. Pearson and they all smile at her, and then she smiles back. Doris, anxiously, "Yes, mother?" So Mrs. Pearson smiling. "Seeing that you don't want to go out, I tell you what I thought he would do." And she's like, "You know what, seeing you're not going out, I just wanted to tell you that what I thought we would do. अब क्योंकि तुम बाहर नहीं जा रही हो, so I think I should tell you what I want you all to do." Mrs. Fitzgerald giving a final warning, "Remember." And then she finally says remember, and then she finally leaves the house. Mrs. Pearson nodding, then looking sharply at the family. "No objections, I hope." And she's like, "Since nobody is going out, so you don't have any objections, okay? If I tell you something like, what are my plans?" George, "No, mother, whatever you say." And he's like, "No, it's okay. Whatever you say, we all will do it." Mrs. Pearson smiling. "I thought we would have a nice family game of rummy, and then you children could get the supper ready while I have a talk with your father." And she's like, "You know what? Let's just play rummy all together, the family game, and then two of you can go and prepare dinner, that is supper, for all of us. Until that time, I will talk to your father privately." George firmly, "Suits me." And George is like, "Okay, that suits me." He looks challengingly at the children. "What about you two?" And he's like, "Are you all ready? Are you two of you are ready for it?" Cyril, hastily, like with full energy and with full vigor and zeal, and fastly, she said, "Yes, that's all right." Doris hesitating. "Well, Mrs. Pearson, what? Speak up." So Doris says hastily, "Oh, I think it should be lovely." And then Mrs. Pearson smiling, "Goodbye, Mrs. Fitzgerald. Come again soon." Mrs. Fitzgerald, "Yes, dear. Night all. Have a nice time." Mrs. Fitzgerald exits left and the family cluster round mother as the play ends. As the mother wanted, They all reacted in the same way. They decided to play the game of rummy, and then two of the siblings were supposed to prepare the supper. So that is where the play ends. I hope you got everything very clear now. I hope there is no doubt, there is no trouble in the explanation of the chapter, because we have checked out each and every line thoroughly, right? We have checked out the whole characters, their dialogues, we have read each one of them, right? So I think we are super clear with the chapter. Now, let's check out the theme of this chapter. The first theme is gendered roles in the family. So, you know how we actually, according to the genders, we specify. All right, Nidhi, all right. So we specify if he is the male of, like, if if he is the man in the family, he is supposed to go out, he can orders everybody, and then he can have a chill life. He's not supposed to help in the household chores. He don't need to wash the utensils. Excuse me, he doesn't need to wash away the clothes. He can live his life pleasurably at home. But that is something which is not there for women, right? Women are supposed to be at home. They have to be at everybody's disposal. The women is supposed to complete everybody's chores. So how in be it any country, wherein you will see that every job is gender specific when it comes to family. So first of all is allocation of duties. Um, yeah, allocation of duties according to gender. Families don't appreciate the effort and work done by mother. So none of the family members, they do not even really appreciate the work, the effort which the mother has done for the family. They believe that since she is the mother, doing such thing is her duty and her duty alone. So because she is the mother, so it is her duty. Why to even bother about it? उनको ये काम करना ही है. So everybody considers that as her duty. Though all the members can do their work on their own, but it is believed that the woman of the family needs to take care of their things. So all of us can do our work. I mean, all the family members. नहीं हम लोग next I think discuss करेंगे figures of speech. That is the next agenda, Deepak. Because Nidhi wanted to have a clear discussion on it. So हम लोग not tomorrow, definitely on Monday. कल there will be no class on YouTube, but on Monday we'll check out figures of speech, right? So yeah, although we can actually put our towel on place, we can put our shoes, we can put our bags, everything on place, but then this is something which the mother is supposed to do. So we do not do our work on our own. Members of the family believes and considers that it is compulsory to be done by her. So everybody considers that this work is supposed to be done by the mother, and they do not even help her in all those household chores. They don't even appreciate mother for doing their chores, right? Next is the stereotypical ideal woman. You know how we have in our mind a very stereotype about ideal woman, somebody who doesn't smoke, somebody who doesn't drink, somebody who is like always going to give a smile, somebody who's always going to have a smile on her face, somebody who doesn't yell, who doesn't shout. दीपक उसके बाद प्लीज हम लोग एक टॉपिक ले लें ग्रामर का. एक्टिव पैसिव प्लीज. आपके एग्जाम्स हो गए क्या दीपक बाय द वे? राइट, अगर एग्जाम्स हो गए थोड़ा सा ग्रामर पिक कर लें अभी फिर. प्लीज टेल मी. या So now this play discusses the need for breaking the stereotype of the ideal woman. It is assumed that the ideal woman is someone who is obedient, जो सबकी बात सुनती है, okay? जो सबके लिए सारे काम करती है, and she is like super obedient, docile, meek, mild-mannered, submissive, and caring. And the other family members bosses around her. Other family members act as if they are the real boss of in the family, and she is somebody who will going to do everything for each one of them. Mrs. Fitzgerald helped Mrs. Pearson to break the stereotype and take a stand for herself. So now therein Mrs. Fitzgerald helped Mrs. Pearson to take a stand for her own self, and to break the stereotype of that so-called ideal women. It is not like that somebody smokes, somebody drinks, somebody is yelling. That doesn't mean that person is bad, alright? Next is position of women in the family. So this play is actually a satire, a comical way to show the position of mothers in the family. And this is not like this was simply happening in England. This is something which is present. हाँ दीपक हम लोग करेंगे ना, आई एम नॉट सेइंग हम लोग नहीं करेंगे, बट अभी थोड़ा ग्रामर पिक करने के बाद बर्थ चैप्टर कर लें, चलेगा? ठीक है. So the condition of women is universally that. Next is let's check out the character sketches, the character sketch of Mrs. Pearson first. So Mrs. Pearson is stereotypical ideal mother and housewife. तो stereotype क्या होता है? एक पुराना convention तरीका जो होता है tradition concept में, she is an ideal mother and a typical housewife. Meek, mild mannered, obedient, worried looking, and she's like mild mannered and who is obedient, जो सबका सारा time पे काम करती है, and she's always worried, okay, and she is in her 40s. We have got her age in the beginning of the drama itself, and she remains unhappy throughout the time. Taken granted by others, and she's being taken as for granted, taken for granted by others. No one in her family shows respect. Everyone orders her to do things, receives no appreciation for the work she does. Everything is considered to be her duty. So nobody pays attention, nobody appreciates her efforts, nobody appreciates her actions. So that is why she decided to take help from Mrs. Fitzgerald. Now, next is Mrs. Fitzgerald herself. So she is the neighbor. Now she's older. She's older than Mrs. Pearson. She's heavier in build and she's strong and little bit sinister in her action. She has got an Irish accent. हम यहाँ पे Mrs. Pearson का accent भी describe कर सकते हैं that she has got the suburb accent. Now, she is actually completely opposite of an ideal mother. How ideal mothers are presented in to each one of us, right? She's totally opposite of that. She smokes, she drinks, she's loud, she's boisterous. So that is how her personality is being described in the story. She has traveled and spent time in East also, and she has traveled and she has got some magic tricks from East as well. Now she decided to switch her bodies with Mrs. Pearson because she wanted Mrs. Pearson to gain that value, to gain that respect as the lady of her own house. Not like somebody who is being ill treated by others of the same family members, but by like the lady of the house. Next is Doris Pearson. She is in her early 20s. She's a spoiled daughter and she orders mother to iron her silk, and she got really shocked when she checked out her mother's behavior. Next is Cyril. So Cyril is like completely, a counterpart. That is the term which is being used in the book also, in the story also. Counterpart of Doris, right? He's spoiled and disrespectful, and he behaves impolitely with Mrs. Fitzgerald. So he behaves mispolitely. I mean, he behaves impolitely with Mrs. Fitzgerald. Next is George Pearson. So George Pearson is the husband in the story, right? He's nearly 50, decent and solemn, like who is very, dull in his own approach, loved by his friends, and he's somebody just pay who's whose friends always used to laugh at him, and he was shocked again to see his wife's behavior, and he likes to assert the authority that comes with being a man, and he likes to put on that authority that he is the man in the house and everybody should listen to him. Again, he himself is allowed to drink, but when his wife is drinking, he doesn't really appreciate that. He is having lack of manners because when Mrs. Fitzgerald enters into the room, he doesn't even pay any respect to her. He didn't even ask her, "How are you? How is life?" Nothing. And then that clearly shows that he is somebody who is rude. With this, let's check out the NCRT questions. Now, I would request all of you to kindly take a screenshot of it. Yeah, that would be a great help for all of you while giving up the exam. This play, written in 1950s, is a humorous and a satirical depiction of the status of the mother in the family. So as I've already told you, अभी अभी हमने check किया था कि ये बहुत ही ज़्यादा satirical presentation है of the family in the irrespective of the place of women of mother. So what are the issues it raises? So what all issues are being raised in this chapter? Again, guys, you can write answers in your own language also, it doesn't matter. But then if you want a concrete answer, it's right here. The play raises many serious issues. The first and foremost is proper appreciation of a housewife's role and responsibility. There are like many topics about which this play is all talking about, and the first one is the responsibility of housewife and a role of a housewife. Those who work 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week treat the housewife as an unpaid domestic servant. So all those who pay, who goes out and who works, they consider the work of a housewife as if that she is simply a domestic servant and it is her simple duty to do it. The second issue is the reciprocity of love and gratitude towards the mother of wife. So हम लोग बिल्कुल भी reciprocate नहीं करते हैं the love and gratitude which our mother or which the wife shows on us, which she showers on us. The husband, son, and daughter leave the lady of the house alone every night and go out to enjoy themselves in the several ways. They do not take any notice of her and have become thoughtless and selfish. They do not even pay attention to her, and each one of them has become thoughtless and selfish. The mother's excessive love, care, and promptness to serve them also spoil them. So her own affection, love, and care actually spoiled each one of them. Do you think it caricatures? Caricatures means cartoon. A very cartoon version. These issues, or do you think that the problem it raises are genuine? So, do you think ये जितना भी सब issues के बारे में discuss किए, they are like simply comical, or do you think they are like real genuine issues? How does the play resolve the issues? So, ये play कैसे help करता है इन पूरे issues को resolve करने में? The problem the play raises are serious. The treatment is of course comic. The playwright adopts an unusual method to resolve the issue. So although बहुत ही जो treatment है वो बहुत ही comical है, he takes the help of magic from the east. So he got the magic from the east. So he took the help of magic to show how we can deal with the whole situation. Incantation of a magical spell helps in the interchange of the personalities. Now, Mrs. Pearson, with the strong and sinister personality of Mrs. Fitzgerald, gives rough treatment to the daughter, son, and husband, respectively. Her stern looks and commanding tones suggest to them that she can be really tough. Sorry. The spoiled mother are brought round by the heavy dose of exposure of reality to them. They agree to stay and help in preparing the supper while the housewife has a talk with her husband. Right? The resolution of the issue seems far-fetched and unnatural, but extreme means have to be adopted in disaster management. Right? So these are the simple ways how you can answer your questions. You can frame your own answers as well. Right? If you were to write that is like simply इसके बाद वाले जो answers है वो आप लोग अपनी language में लिख सकते हो. Right? So if you want to take a screenshot of this particular answer, you can. I'm providing it to you here. Right? And the next question is drama a good medium for conveying a social message? If you think it is, then go for it. You need to write your own answer in your own language because these are all subjective answers, okay? It can vary, it can be different from one person to the other. So this is something which we all can manage on our own, I believe. So with this, we are done with this chapter, right? We are so done with Mother's Day, and we have done with this chapter in 3 continuous days. We have checked out the Like we have checked out each and every dialogue of each and every character. Just now we have checked out the themes and the character sketch. Along with that, we have discussed a couple of NCRT questions as well. I hope you are left with no doubts now, and if you still have any doubts, you can write in the comment box and I will try to answer them all. Another thing, guys, do use my code, which is Ambika, Ambika, to enroll yourself with Unacademy. And the exams are right. The finals are really around the corner, just like 3-4 months away from the present time, from 2nd or 3rd of October, right? So you must be in need of the guidance, and herein we provide you. We are the torch bearers. So do take help from us. We will try to guide you all how you need to write your answers, and we'll promise we'll make sure that all of you score really high in your exams. So for that, you need to enroll yourself with Unacademy, and you can use my code, which is AMBIKA, to enroll yourself. With that, I'll take your leave. Right? Do take care of yourself and study hard.